In 2007, The Big Bang Theory debuted on CBS, but the sitcom didn't explode in popularity until reruns hit syndication. Since then, its season premieres have routinely ranked near the top of network TV ratings, and reruns dominate the list of most-watched cable shows. But for any shows this huge, there are bound to be some big bangs behind the scenes, too. The pilot reconceptualization. The show that's aired for nearly a decade is very different from the original pilot. Jim Parsons as Sheldon was originally a horn dog. His character was changed to someone mystified by romance.
And I have seen 6 women naked. Some of them weren't even relatives.
Kaley Cuoco's Penny was also absent. Instead, the attractive neighbor was the unfriendly Katie, played by Amanda Walsh. Johnny Galecki as Leonard wore suits instead of hoodies. And there was one other change. The theme song was Thomas Dolby's She Blinded Me with Science. CBS passed, but asked creators Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady to rework the show and submit another pilot. They did, adding an original theme by Bare Naked Ladies, and made it to air in 2007. The Bernadette vocalization. Bernadette's mousy, high-pitched voice and loud moments of screaming rage don't come naturally to actress Melissa Rauch.
She's a wonderful girl, and you're lucky to have me.
Where are you going?
The toilet. Is that okay with you?
Although she doesn't sound like Bernadette in real life, Rauch took her inspiration from a source close to home, her own mother.
They'll say things like, I went to the grocery store and I had to return something and they sent me to 3 different counters. It was a real searcher.
The paycheck extortion. In 2014, production of the show's 8th season was delayed due to contract renegotiations between the cast and Warner Brothers. Ultimately, CBS renewed the show for an unprecedented 3 seasons, keeping it on the air through 2017. Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaley Cuoco each secured a salary of $1 million per episode. Meanwhile, Simon Helberg and Kunal Nair renegotiated their new contracts collectively, ending up with salaries of around $750,000 per episode. A settlement was reached the day before their old contracts expired, but the duo would have reportedly been written out of the show if they hadn't accepted the deal. The relationship obfuscation. Kaley Cuoco has often appeared in tabloids due to her brief marriage to tennis player Ryan Sweeting. Still, she avoided the spotlight during her previous relationship, even though it was with a noteworthy co-star. Cuoco and Johnny Galecki dated from 2007 to 2009 and kept it a secret from not only the media, but from the Big Bang cast and crew.
We totally fell for each other and just really wanted to keep it as close to ourselves as possible. We had an amazing relationship.
The Mayim Bialik manifestation. In the 2008 episode The Bat Jar Conjecture, Sheldon quits the group's physics bowl team. Raj aims high in his suggestion for a replacement.
You know what's apparently very smart is the girl who played TV's Blossom. She got a PhD in neuroscience or something.
Raj, we're not getting TV's Blossom to join our physics bowl team.
The actress is Mayim Bialik, who later joined the cast as Amy Farrah Fowler. Also under consideration for the role was actress and musician Kate Micucci. She was edged out for the part, but producers liked her so much that they wrote her in anyhow, as Lucy, the extremely introverted woman Raj briefly dates. The soft kitty misappropriation.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. So that's where you come in.
Co-creator Bill Prady says he heard Sheldon's special Calm Down song at his daughter's preschool. Assuming it was public domain, he added it to the show, where it's been used multiple times and on Big Bang merchandise. In 2015, however, the family of a teacher named Edith Newland sued CBS. Allegedly, the show lifted lyrics from Newland's 1937 song Warm Kitty. The main difference? The original 1937 lyrics switched the first 2 lines from the song we now know and love. This whole thing could make for one rich kitty.
Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr.
Since quietly debuting on CBS in 2007, The Big Bang Theory has gone on to become the most popular sitcom on television. Here's a look at some stories and scandals behind the scenes of America's favorite sitcom about science nerds. The Big Bang that's aired for a decade plus is very different from the pilot episode presented to CBS in 2006. While he's now depicted as largely asexual and mystified by romance, Jim Parsons' Sheldon was sexually active in the pilot. There was also no Penny. Instead, the attractive neighbor role was filled by a tough, not very friendly woman named Katie.
You make stupid choices and then you blame everyone else.
You're calling me stupid.
No, I said you make stupid choices.
Because I'm stupid.
Well,
Even the looks were different. Johnny Galecki's Leonard mostly wore suits instead of t-shirts and hoodies. There was one other noticeable difference. The theme song was Thomas Dolby's 1983 hit She Blinded Me with Science. CBS passed, but asked creators Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady to rework the show and submit another pilot. They revised it and added in a new theme song from Bare Naked Ladies, which made it to the network's fall schedule in 2007. Over the years, the show has mined a lot of comedy from Bernadette's voice. When she's just talking to Howard or her friends, she speaks in a quiet, mousy, high-pitched way.
Get that guy! Pew, pew!
But when she gets angry, she switches to loud moments of screaming rage.
He didn't try them yet!
Neither of those voices come naturally to the actress behind Bernadette, Melissa Rauch. In fact, her regular off-screen speaking voice is quite normal.
Bernadette's voice is very similar to my mother's, except without the Jersey accent.
That means that when Bernadette would imitate Howard's late mother, who spoke with a Jersey accent, she was likely doing a fully accurate impression of her mom. In 2014, contract renegotiations between the cast and Warner Brothers delayed production on the show. Ultimately, CBS renewed the sitcom for 3 additional seasons, and the show's 3 leads, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaley Cuoco, each secured a salary of $1 million per episode. Meanwhile, the show's male supporting actors, who'd been with the show since day one, also had to renegotiate their contracts. Simon Helberg and Kunal Nair bargained collectively, and both wound up with salaries of around $750,000 per episode. That leaves the other 2 major long-term Big Bang Theory cast members, Melissa Rauch and Mayim Bialik. They both joined the show later on in its run, and up until the 2016-17 season, both raked in a relatively meager $200,000 per episode. However, for the show's 11th and 12th seasons, the highest-paid cast members agreed to a pay cut down to $900,000 an episode each, with the intent that the extra money went to Rauch and Bialik, making $450,000 an episode. In the early years of The Big Bang Theory, Johnny Galecki and Kaley Cuoco secretly dated each other, concurrent with their characters' budding romantic interest. It wasn't until 2010, well after the couple amicably split, that either said anything publicly about their time together. Cuoco told company magazine CBS Watch that she had dated Galecki for almost 2 years. "It was such a huge part of my life and nobody knew about it." 3 years later, Galecki gave his side of the story to CBS Watch. "We're dear friends still. Kaley's not just an ex, she's a part of my life. I just don't like to speak about it, and not because I'm trying to be enigmatic, I just worry that it will conflict with people's acceptance of Leonard and Penny." Co-creator Bill Prady says he first heard Soft Kitty, Sheldon's special calm down song, sung at his daughter's preschool. Assuming it was in the public domain, he added it to the show, where it's been used multiple times and on scores of Big Bang merchandise.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur.
Wait. Let's sing it as a round. I'll start.
In December 2015, however, the family of a New Hampshire preschool teacher named Edith Newland sued CBS for copyright infringement, alleging they lifted lyrics without permission from a song Newland wrote in the 1930s called Warm Kitty. The lyrics of Newland's song are nearly identical. However, in March 2017, a U.S. district judge dismissed the suit, ruling that Prady hadn't violated any copyright laws because Newland's descendants couldn't actually prove that they had a copyright on Warm Kitty. Mayim Bialik joined the series as neuroscientist Amy Fowler in Season 3 and very slowly became a love interest for Sheldon and a hopelessly devoted BFF to Penny. The Big Bang Theory had been on TV for a while by then, but Bialik hadn't quite managed to catch an episode. Bialik went in to audition for the show without even realizing how successful the show was. As of 2016, she claims to have not seen any Big Bang episodes produced before she joined, not to mention most of the ones that she actually appears in. Every episode of The Big Bang Theory ends with a title card from Chuck Lorre. He writes a new one each time, and while it only appears on screen for a second or two, he uses it as a sounding board for his thoughts. In 2010, one such card reported on Lorre's discovery of a TV show from the Eastern European nation of Belarus called The Theorists. The sitcom was about 4 nerdy scientists who live next door to a beautiful blonde waitress. The characters are named Sheldon, Leo, Hovard, Raj, and Natasha. Lorre was convinced that The Theorists was majorly cribbing from The Big Bang Theory. Lawyers at Warner Brothers Television told Lorre there was little that could be done because the production company responsible for The Theorists was owned by the Belarusian government, but the show was eventually canceled anyway. In 2011, a photographer spotted a tiny organism in the Brunswick River in the Australian state of New South Wales. The photographer knew it was a jellyfish but couldn't readily identify it, so he sent his photos to jellyfish expert Dr. Lisa Ann Gershwin. After 2 years of research, Gershwin and her colleague, taxonomist Peter Davey, confirmed that the 15mm creature was a previously undiscovered jellyfish. As one of the discoverers, Gershwin got to help name the species, and she went with Bazinga rieki. The first part of the name is an obvious reference to Sheldon Cooper's catchphrase Cry of Triumph.
Bazinga! I have an override switch.
In 2013, biologists from a university in Brazil announced the discovery of a new bee, the orchid bee. It so closely resembles another species of bee, the Euglossa ignita, that the researchers decided to go ahead and give the orchid bee its own official scientific name of Euglossa bazinga. Sheldon most often uses bazinga as a kind of gotcha when he tricks someone or plays a prank on them.
Where did you get them? What? Bazinga. I don't care.
The biologists thought the word was a perfect way to describe such a tricky bee. That makes it one of few insects on Earth to ever be named after a sitcom catchphrase. The Big Bang Theory's showrunner released a statement in response on behalf of the fictional honoree. Sheldon would be honored to know that Euglossa bazinga was inspired by him. In fact, after Mothra and griffins, bees are his third favorite flying creatures. Jim Parsons' occasionally sputtered utterance of bazinga is a classic TV catchphrase that ranks with the all-time great t-shirt-worthy TV expressions, such as cowabunga or no soup for you. It's Sheldon's preferred term of triumph for a well-executed prank on his scientist friends. The phrase, and the proper time to say it, is a direct carryover from the Big Bang Theory writer's room. Staff writer Stephen Ingle, who wrote for the show in 2008 and 2009, loved to set up fun and innocuous practical jokes to rib the other scribes. Co-creator Bill Prady explained the origins of the catchphrase at a 2013 Paley Fest event.
That was Stephen's word for gotcha, and he would use it in the writer's room.
When The Big Bang Theory was getting off the ground in the mid-2000s, former child superstar Macaulay Culkin was in the midst of a comeback. He'd ended a long hiatus with appearances in 2 indie films, the religious satire Saved, and the club kid murder mystery Party Monster. Big Bang Theory producers wanted very much to be in business with the former Richie Rich and Kevin McAllister. Culkin guested on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast in 2018 and told Rogan,
"No," I said, nah, because it was kind of like the way the pitch was kind of just like, all right, these 2 astrophysicist nerds, and then a pretty girl lives with them, yoinks, and that was that was the pitch.
Culkin didn't reveal which character he would have played, but he did add that he had to reject producers' overtures 2 more times. The Big Bang Theory just loves to insert musical sequences now and then to break up the setup, wisecrack, laughs formula, and whenever possible, they let the actors perform their own musical stunts. That works out because a number of the cast members know their way around an instrument. In the 2013 episode The Romance Resonance, Bernadette gets quarantined, which leads to Howard leading the whole Big Bang group in a performance of a special song he wrote for her.
If I didn't have you, life would be blue. I'd be Doctor Who without the TARDIS.
Is it me or does she not look so good?
The actual composers of the song are Kate Micucci and Ricky Lindholm of the comedy musical duo Garfunkel and Oates. Helberg sang and accompanied himself on keyboards, and it only took him 1 take to perform the song perfectly. 2 other Big Bang actors learned to play instruments, no small feat, just for the show. Sheldon plays the theremin, an electronic instrument used to make those spooky, high-pitched noises in old science fiction and horror movies, so Jim Parsons figured out how to operate one too. It's a little easier to learn than the harp, which Mayim Bialik took up when the writers decided that her character should play the harp. Just before CBS started airing the 12th season of The Big Bang Theory, CBS announced that the upcoming batch of episodes would be its last. Co-creator and executive producer Chuck Lorre had gathered the cast in his office in August 2018, where star Jim Parsons announced that he was leaving the show at season's end. Immediately after, Lorre told the cast that everyone would be leaving at season's end because he'd opted to end the series rather than do it without Parsons. According to Deadline, Parsons told Lorre of his decision a few days before that meeting, and plenty of executives secretly tried to get Parsons to change his mind. The 4-time Emmy winner may have even turned down as much as $50 million to stay with The Big Bang Theory for 2 more seasons.
Penny may be the black sheep of the Big Bang crew, but on at least one occasion, she was more of a big bully. Actress Kaley Cuoco played Penny on The Big Bang Theory for 12 seasons. In a way, the entire series is predicated on her entrance into the lives of the show's principal nerds, and the various ways she lives up to and defies the blonde stereotypes that provide an early source for the show's unique brand of humor.
I'm a vegetarian, except for fish, and the occasional steak. I love steak.
Well, that's interesting.
Penny makes her debut in the pilot as the beautiful girl who moves in across the hall from the brilliant but socially awkward Caltech scientists Sheldon Cooper and Leonard Hofstadter. Leonard immediately becomes infatuated with the Cheesecake Factory waitress and wannabe actress, the tough Nebraska farm girl who prefers wine, shoes, and celebrity gossip to video games and comic books, embarks on a 9-year will-they-won't-they relationship with Leonard that ends with the twosome at last tying the knot in season 10. Much of the humor on The Big Bang Theory is derived from Penny making fun of Leonard, Sheldon, and their friends for being geeks, and from her own ditzy and flirty behavior. Penny and Leonard's unlikely romance is also the butt of countless jokes, reminding the audience time and again that when opposites attract, wacky and weird hijinks ensue. However, there are times when it's hard to ignore that Penny and Leonard are woefully mismatched, infusing the sitcom with moments that can be hard to watch. In fact, Season 7, Episode 12 contains a scene in which fans agree that Penny goes too far in her mistreatment of Leonard.
Are you kidding me?
In the hesitation ramification, Penny is cast on an episode of NCIS. After her scene is cut, a depressed and drunken Penny tells Leonard she spent 10 years in California and she has nothing to show for it. Leonard points out that she has him, and Penny tells him he's right and proposes.
Let's get married.
What?
When Leonard hesitates, Penny gets upset, takes back the proposal, and storms out of Leonard's apartment. Leonard begins to question if he and Penny have a future together, and it's obvious Leonard is heartbroken. Throughout the entire episode, Penny treats Leonard badly, particularly when he does something she perceives as criticism or rejection. Fans took to Reddit to discuss this episode and specific scene, and their comments do not paint a flattering picture of Penny, with everyone firmly on Team Leonard. One user wrote, "I believe Leonard did the right thing by saying no to Penny's drunken proposal. If he did say yes to the proposal, I think he would feel like he would have been taking advantage of her in her drunken state." Another Redditor was particularly unkind in their assessment of Penny, writing, "Penny is a legitimate alcoholic. I don't remember an episode where she hasn't had a drink. Is there one?" Another user went in on Penny further, writing, "Penny is selfish, rude, and sometimes cruel to the man she's supposed to love. Leonard doesn't seem to have any dignity left." It's a pretty harsh take on our tow-headed heroine, especially considering the delicate state the episode finds her in. It's worth noting that Penny has just experienced a major career disappointment, one that quite reasonably might make her a tad sensitive to any additional rejection in her life. Perhaps Penny's reaction to Leonard's hesitation to accept her proposal on The Big Bang Theory would have generated more sympathy from viewers if fans didn't already have issues with their relationship. There is no shortage of Reddit chatter devoted to the topic of Penny and Leonard's partnership, and why Penny is a terrible partner for Leonard. One Reddit thread simply titled, "I Hate Penny," consists of ruthless takedowns of the character. As one user put it, "She constantly fights with Leonard and walks all over him." Considering Penny's negative behavior after Leonard doesn't respond the way she wants him to after she asks him to marry her, this opinion is not without merit. Penny attempts to exploit Leonard to make herself feel better, while also taking advantage of his feelings for her. Leonard actually proposes to Penny long before she pops the question. He first asks her in The Big Bang Theory Season 5, Episode 23, The Launch Acceleration, and she responds with frustration and anger, in part because of Leonard's poor timing.
It's the heat of the moment.
No, the heat of the moment is, oh yeah, just like that. Not, will you marry me?
As you might be able to guess, she ultimately tells him no. As some disappointed fans interpret it, in Penny's mind, rejection is only understandable or acceptable if she's the one saying no.
After 12 years and 279 episodes, The Big Bang Theory wrapped up its run in 2019, and the final shows were crammed full of references to past storylines and characters. Here's a look at everything that went down and why it all matters to the overall Big Bang Theory universe. Long-running sitcom finales almost always involve a big dramatic event. Characters move away, or a romantic will they or won't they thread ends happily, or some other big goal is achieved. For a show like The Big Bang Theory, about adults who have almost all married and become successful in their professions, that kind of big change wouldn't have rung true. Instead, the writers found an ending that made sense for its world-class scientist characters, while also resolving a plotline that stretched throughout the show's 12th and final season. Physicist Sheldon Cooper and his wife, neuroscientist Amy Farrah Fowler, win the Nobel Prize for Physics for their work on superasymmetry. It's the ultimate goal of every scientist, and one Sheldon specifically and frequently mentioned throughout the series.
So you really think that I'm the kind of man who would sell out his partner for the chance of winning a Nobel Prize? Are you? Boy, I hope not.
Receiving this honor also gives the show an excuse for a big destination finale. So you guessed it, the whole gang decides to accompany Sheldon and Amy to the Nobel Awards ceremony in Sweden. Over the course of nearly 300 episodes, The Big Bang Theory developed quite a few running gags, recurring bits, and even unsolved mysteries. The finale gave fans what they wanted, delivering on those lengthy setups and wrapping things up nicely along the way. Viewers finally learn why Leonard dresses the way he does, forever sporting at least 2 layers on his upper body despite living in sunny California. Leonard reveals that he's always rocking a hooded sweatshirt because he's constantly chilly. This, of course, is Sheldon's fault. He insists that the thermostat be kept at an uncomfortably low temperature. The show's longest-running gag is also resolved. After years of walking up and down the stairs, a mechanical miracle occurs. With a simple ding, Penny emerges from the elevator that's been out of order since the first episode aired in 2007.
Can you believe it? They finally fixed the elevator.
Plus, a couple of the show's most predominant recurring characters get cameos in the final episodes, doing exactly the type of things that made them so beloved. John Ross Bowie reprises his role as Sheldon's workplace nemesis Barry. He prank calls a very nervous Sheldon as he waits to hear from the Nobel Committee. Also, the perpetually unlucky Stuart shows up for a quick scene. Howard and Bernadette video chat with him as they realize he was the wrong person to babysit their children.
Okay, so everyone's happy and healthy?
Well, that depends.
What's that mean?
How many teeth did Hallie have when you left?
Even a double episode with nearly 45 minutes of running time, however, wasn't enough to wrap up every storyline from the show's extensive past. When the series began in 2007, all 4 male main characters were single and socially awkward. By the end, 3 of them, Sheldon, Leonard, and Howard, found love and are happily married. That just leaves Raj, the most lovelorn of them all, as the sole bachelor. The series ends with Raj just as single as when it started, although he almost got married in the final season. Luckily, there may be a glimmer of hope for his love life. On the flight over to Sweden, Raj ends up in a seat next to Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was TV's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Somehow, he manages to convince her to attend the Nobel ceremony with him, which was a huge surprise to everyone.
Is that Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
And as for The Big Bang Theory's most enduring question, well, it didn't get answered, and it probably never will. Before she became Mrs. Penny Hofstadter, Penny's last name was never mentioned. Even when relatives visited, writers were careful to let the mystery remain unsolved. A huge amount of the show's stories, jokes, and character quirks revolved around Sheldon being picky, self-centered, arrogant, controlling, and unabashed about all of it.
I'm sorry, did I upset you?
Yes!
Ask me how I feel about that.
Most viewers have probably wondered why Amy and the others can tolerate such an intolerable man. Throughout the finale, almost every character has finally had enough of Sheldon's behavior, and they let him know it. Leonard confronts him when, after being told that Penny is pregnant, Sheldon's merely glad that she's got morning sickness and not a virus that he might catch. When Sheldon tells Amy that he doesn't intend to be so mean, she drops the bomb that this obliviousness is the only reason why his entire group of friends hasn't walked out on him. Sheldon's behavior is so terrible that Howard, Bernadette, Leonard, and Penny all make plans to head home early and skip the ceremony. But this is an upbeat network sitcom, so that's not gonna happen. The whole gang is in the audience when Amy and Sheldon accept science's highest honor. Both characters deliver touching speeches. One speaks to the show's legacy, and the other provides a happy, tear-jerking moment. The Big Bang Theory casually demystified science for millions and probably inspired more than a few kids to be scientists. In real life, actress Mayim Bialik has a PhD in neuroscience from UCLA. Reflecting this passion, her character Amy gives a powerful speech encouraging young girls who dream of a career in science to go for it, no matter what.
It is the greatest job in the world. And if anybody tells you you can't, don't listen.
Then it's Sheldon's turn. Stunned that his friends have stuck around to cheer him on after his terrible behavior, he ignores the novel-length self-aggrandizing speech he prepared. Instead, he speaks from the heart and thanks his friends and wife for their years of support. Sheldon also apologizes for not always being a great friend and lets them know how he truly feels.
But I want you to know, in my way, I love you all.
This beloved series could very well have ended in that auditorium in Sweden, but that was just the show's climax. It needed an epilogue. At its heart, The Big Bang Theory is a show about friendship and how powerful it is when misfits grow up and create their own families of kindred spirits. So much of the series consisted of the 7 featured characters hanging out in the main apartment set, gathering each evening to eat takeout. And that was the perfect final image for The Big Bang Theory. A group of close friends casually hanging out as the camera eases away and the series fades into TV history.
If you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, perhaps you can answer this simple question for us. What exactly is Penny's last name? Well, We imagine you're totally stumped right now. That's because, unlike the other main characters, Penny doesn't actually have a last name, at least not a last name we ever heard on the show. Sure, she became Penny Hofstadter after she married Leonard, but her maiden name still remains a big mystery, even after the season finale aired in May 2019. Many of us waited and waited, but we never got the big reveal, and it's entirely likely that we never will. This omission evidently wasn't an oversight, at least not through the entire run of the show. As it turns out, the creative minds behind the show made an executive decision to leave Penny's surname an unsolved mystery, evidently unaware that this is exactly the kind of thing that keeps us awake at night. Chuck Lorre, the co-creator of The Big Bang Theory, once hinted that Penny's last name might be Barrington. But if that's true, it was certainly never mentioned on the program, or anywhere else for that matter, so he may have been trolling his fans. As executive producer Stephen Malaro explained during a March 19 WonderCon panel, "Eventually, we got nervous and superstitious about giving her a last name. It will always be her married name, Hofstadter." He said something similar to Vulture in 2013. What name could we possibly pick that would be satisfying at this point? You know, I don't think we will reveal it. We're kind of a superstitious lot here. We've made it this far without knowing Penny's last name. I think we're good not finding out.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't it?
No, I mean what you find enjoyable.
And the plot thickens. In 2017, actress Kaley Cuoco revealed that she didn't even want to know Penny's last name, telling CBS, "It's kind of a personal thing. It feels like a jinx. We haven't said it for so long. I feel like if we said it, the world will explode." Cuoco tauntingly goes on to reveal that she has some idea about what Penny's maiden name is, but don't get too excited because she never spills the beans. Instead, she clamps down and outright refuses to share her top secret intel with us. Does she also think Penny's last name is Barrington? Why the veil of secrecy? Does Penny have a last name that's simply too embarrassing to say out loud? For the love of God, what is Penny's last name? It's really anyone's guess at this point. And it sounds like Cuoco is all about keeping this burning pop culture mystery alive. In fact, at the wrap party for the series finale in May 2019, she even admitted, "I kind of love it. So many things are revealed in the last few episodes. You get a lot of satisfying moments, but I kind of love that we'll never know her last name." Could this glaring omission have something to do with how Penny was conceived in the first place? As Newsweek reports, she was written into the pilot at the very last minute, an attempt to replace a character named Katie, who was originally intended to be the girl living across the hall from Sheldon and Leonard. Well, test audiences evidently really hated this Katie, and they thought her personality was way too brash for the show. Whatever that means in the context of The Big Bang Theory.
Allow me to explain it to you in your language. Nerdish.
To address these concerns, the writers started from scratch and eventually created Penny as a replacement for Katie. Cuoco had originally auditioned for the part, and she was subsequently called back to audition for Penny. Spoiler alert, she totally landed the role. Since Penny was added into the show so late in the game, perhaps the writers and creators totally forgot to give her a last name. Hey, it happens. And throughout the run of the series, perhaps they simply never found the right opportunity or right gag to make the big reveal something memorable. Much like the enduring popularity of The Big Bang Theory, this is one mystery we may never get to the bottom of.
Whether you are a fan from way back or just got into the series when it was added to HBO Max, The Big Bang Theory remains one of the most binge-worthy sitcoms in recent memory. With a story that runs 12 seasons and 279 episodes, the series makes for many hours of enjoyment, as well as plenty of opportunities to spot potential plot holes and continuity errors. That's to be expected with any long-running series though, and spotting gaps in logic or very specific errors can even add an extra level of enjoyment to a rewatch. Fans of The Big Bang Theory certainly seem to think so, as they often take to Reddit to share the plot holes they uncover deep in the show's history. Unraveling how these mess-ups affect the rest of the series then also adds to the fun of seeking them out. One error recently uncovered by eagle-eyed Redditors carries big implications for the backstory of Sheldon Cooper, not only on The Big Bang Theory, but also the prequel series, Young Sheldon. There's an issue with Sheldon's age, and it isn't that the show hasn't told us when he was born, rather the problem is that the show tells us when Sheldon was born, but later contradicts that date. It was referenced multiple times that Sheldon and his twin sister Missy were born on February 26, 1980. However, as Reddit user DGNac discovered, the math of Sheldon's various life accomplishments doesn't quite add up. If one examined Sheldon's own accounting of his past in the first season episode, The Luminous Fish Effect. After he gets fired from his job, Sheldon declares he's not interested in getting it back, saying,
I've spent the past 3.5 years staring at grease boards full of equations. Before that, I spent 4 years working on my thesis. Before that, I was in college, and before that, I was in the 5th grade.
Now, another established fact is that Sheldon, being the difficult genius he is, started college when he was 11 years old, a major plot point in Young Sheldon. However, DGNAC notes that when that timeline is added up, 4 years for college, 4 for his PhD thesis, and 3.5 working before the beginning of the series, that puts his age in the luminous fish effect at only 22. That's about 5 years shy of how old he should be at that point, which is 27. This timeline fumble is likely nothing more than the result of a mistake in the script, but it's also not the first time the show has had trouble pinning down exactly when Sheldon was born. The show also goofed on Sheldon's astrological sign. Whether or not you believe that someone's astrological sign has any correlation to their personality, Western astrology does work off of a specific set of dates to categorize people into one of 12 specific signs. However, in the case of The Big Bang Theory, the lines between someone's actual birthday and their sign occasionally gets blurred. For example, in the season 1 episode, The Peanut Reaction, Penny is talking with Sheldon and Leonard about the group's various zodiac signs. She says,
I was going to do everybody's until Sheldon went on one of his typical psychotic rants.
After Sheldon repeats his rant against the legitimacy of astrology, Penny responds,
Blah, 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 typical Taurus.
It's a funny line, but Sheldon's February 26th birthday makes him a Pisces, not a Taurus. Penny herself even confirms this fact in the season 8 episode, The Intimacy Acceleration. After learning that it's Sheldon's birthday, she responds,
That is so funny. I never would have pegged you for a Pisces.
This might all seem like it's fixating extra hard on Sheldon's birthday. So to switch things up, have a look at the time the show couldn't decide where Sheldon was born instead of when. Sheldon's mother, Mary Cooper, became one of the Big Bang Theory's best-loved supporting characters because of her Texas-sized personality and the fact that she and Sheldon are comically different people. One of the first things that viewers learn about Mary is that she gave birth to Sheldon in a rather unconventional location. This occurs in the episode The Luminous Fish Effect, wherein Mary comes to town to try and shake Sheldon out of the depressive episode he falls into after losing his job. While talking to his friends about her son, Mary says,
I tell you, I love the boy to death, but he has been difficult since he fell out of me at the Kmart.
Just one season later, though, viewers were already given an alternative location for Sheldon's birth. In the season 2 episode, The Lizard Spock Expansion, Sheldon asserts that he was born at the fictional Lawrence Memorial Hospital, not at a department store. So, after all of that, here's the lowdown on Sheldon's birth. He was born on February 26th and sometime in April between the years 1980 through 1985 at the Kmart inside the Lawrence Memorial Hospital. Glad that's all cleared up.
What if Penny was hiding a deep, dark secret from the guys since the very first episode? Too hard to believe? Well, keep watching because we're diving into a fan theory that changes everything. If you really think about it, we barely know anything about The Big Bang Theory's Penny, who, until she marries Leonard in season 9, doesn't even have a last name. She's beautiful and blonde, but that doesn't mean her supposed acting career is going anywhere. She can somehow afford to live in the same apartment building as several working scientists, in spite of her waitress salary.
You realize, Penny, that the technology that went into this arm will one day make unskilled food servers such as yourself obsolete.
Really? They're gonna make a robot that spits on your hamburger?
All the while, her character seems to have nothing at all in common with Leonard and his friends. Yet, she still spends almost all of her time hanging out with them, eating Chinese food, and listening to them nerd out about subjects she doesn't seem to grasp. It speaks to a crisis in the very foundation of the show's premise, that these inconsistencies are never probed, let alone explained. Look too hard at the character Penny, and based on the sheer improbability of this one woman's choices and traits, you'll see all the cracks that should have brought the entire structure of the series crumbling down. Fortunately, there is a fan theory that provides an explanation for all of these apparent plot holes, and its implications are pretty darn wild to comprehend. According to this fan theory, first posited by Reddit user Number Theory and picked up by Screen Rant, it's quite possible that Penny is secretly a spy. That's right, move over the Americans, because Chuck Lorre's got an entirely different story to tell about a deep cover agent living among her unsuspecting marks. The theory ties into the notion that the federal government has been spying on Sheldon and Leonard ever since the latter broke up with Joyce Kim, a woman who was revealed to be a North Korean spy in the episode The Staircase Implementation. An upset Leonard causes an explosion that takes out the building's elevators, which may not interest local authorities for very long, but, coupled with the Kim incident, very well could have drawn the attention of the federal government. Aware of Leonard and Sheldon's knowledge of a rocket fuel project, they simply sent Penny in to monitor both men, according to the theory. It sounds absurd, but it actually ties up all of the lingering confusion about her lifestyle. Think about it. Penny, without even an identifiable last name, has been sent into the men's lives to observe their antics. This explains why she spends so much time with two guys who don't share her interests, why she doesn't have any friends of her own, how she can afford an apartment without a roommate, and why there's a lack of traction in her so-called acting career.
When you were telling Kevin about your acting career, did you mention your long-running role as waitress in a local production of The Cheesecake Factory?
All obvious violations of Occam's razor aside, sometimes it's the explanation that actually explains everything that's worthy of consideration. Unlike the real-life Big Bang Theory, ironically enough, you can think of it as a unified theory of Penny.
No cops, be cool.
If you're still having trouble wrapping your head around the possibility that Penny is the spy next door, then consider this. Despite Penny's lack of multiple PhDs, the Big Bang Theory makes it clear she's not an idiot. Far from it, in fact. Without the slow reveal of Penny's intelligence over the course of her long character arc, would her relationship with the objectively brilliant Leonard even work? Maybe, just maybe, she plays it all babe in the woods whenever the boys descend into science talk just to keep their guard down. Maybe she feigns a total lack of understanding to lure this apartment full of useful idiots into a false sense of security. If they knew right from the get-go that Penny understood even a fraction of what they were saying, maybe they would have been more guarded with the details of their work. Her performative ignorance provides them with just the level of comfort they need to spill each and every classified bean. All the while, if this theory is to be believed at least, Penny could be carefully recording any and all information that may be of interest to federal intelligence. Now, go back and watch the entire series from the beginning with this new understanding. It's a totally different show.
That's about it. That's the story of Penny.
Throughout its 12-season run, The Big Bang Theory remained a ratings and cultural juggernaut. But just because something is popular does not automatically mean it is perfect. Here are some questionable things we ignore in The Big Bang Theory. Fans who only started watching The Big Bang Theory after Howard married Bernadette might not realize how big of a creep Howard was before settling down with the love of his life. In the earliest seasons, Howard was basically a predator, and Penny was often the unfortunate recipient of his unwanted attentions. One of the most unsettling throwaway jokes from early on in the show was when Howard asked Penny if she would have opened the door if she knew he was standing outside. To this, Penny replies,
Not since I found out the teddy bear you gave me had a webcam in it.
This was not even the only time Howard tried to use technology to spy on an attractive woman without her consent. He and Raj went to great lengths to figure out the location of the house from America's Next Top Model, where all the models were staying, even making illegal use of a government satellite in the process. Howard's antics are always played for laughs, but it is clear that his behavior rubs every woman he meets the wrong way. This was confirmed when he tried to kiss Penny and she punched him in the eye in retaliation. The truth is, if the show was even slightly realistic, a lot of the stunts Howard pulled to try to get with women could have landed him in jail. The Big Bang Theory was a show that thrived on making jokes about stereotypes. As the show's rare main character who's also non-white, Raj was often the subject of mockery based on his Indian heritage. Over the years, many jokes were made about Raj coming from a country that is poor and overpopulated, where animals are considered magic and where the culture and religion were silly.
That's very offensive.
After a time, the show eased up on the Indian jokes somewhat, but the attacks against Raj became more personal. Every aspect of the character's life, from his lack of a romantic partner to personal interests and physical appearance, were constantly made fun of. Worse, it was usually Raj's best friend Howard making those jokes, to the extent that the two had a brief falling out because Raj did not like the way Howard constantly bullied him. The end of the show did nothing to give Raj any sort of a redemption arc. He remained the only main character to not have a special someone when the series ended, ended due to facing one bitter disappointment in his love life after another. He was also shown to have become much more dependent on his parents for financial support and essentially replaced Sheldon as the man-child unable to function as a mature adult. Before Jim Parsons made Sheldon the star of the show, The Big Bang Theory was mainly about Leonard trying to desperately date Penny. In time, after many false stops and starts, Leonard and Penny finally became a couple when they tie the knot and move in together. But that was far from the happily ever after scenario that fans had been expecting. Soon after their marriage, fans started noticing that Penny was becoming more than a little mean towards Leonard. She belittled his accomplishments, made fun of his relationship with his mother, and frequently made fun of him in group settings. When Penny and Raj were discussing how Howard constantly makes mean-spirited comments about Raj, he points out that Penny does the same thing with Leonard. She agrees with that assessment. But perhaps the biggest sign that all was not well in Penny and Leonard's marriage, due to Penny's attitude, occurs in the episode The Romance Recalibration. At first, Penny thinks Leonard has stopped trying in their relationship since getting married, but then Leonard points out the opposite.
I'm the one who's made all the effort in this relationship since day one. Please tell me what more I could do.
Later seasons of The Big Bang Theory gave us strong female characters and storylines, thanks to the addition of Amy and Bernadette to the main cast. But this only serves to highlight how the early seasons of the show were only interested in presenting women as the mysterious other, almost like they were aliens. The central premise upon which the show itself was built had to do with the awkwardness of the main four male characters in social situations, particularly pertaining to women. Howard acts like a thirsty creep around females, Raj is literally unable to even speak to them without getting drunk, Sheldon has no interest in interacting with them, and Leonard, perhaps the most normal of the group, can't even ask out Penny or any other attractive woman due to a crippling inferiority complex. Because of this setup, females on the show were all too often presented as one-dimensional characters whose only contribution to the plot was being hot or whether or not the male characters had a chance of sleeping with them. This trend was summed up perfectly in the episode The Justice League Recombination. When Sheldon questions whether Penny's Wonder Woman outfit is authentic enough without a black wig, Howard dismisses his concerns with the remark,
"Relax, no one's gonna be looking at her hair."
In a sea of awkward antisocial geeks, The Big Bang Theory initially presented Penny as the sole voice of reason. The street-smart, kind-hearted simpleton did not mind being friends with geeks and even helped them open up to the rest of the world. This, however, is far from the reality of Penny's relationship with the guys. Penny is shown to be clearly aware of the effect her looks have on Leonard, Raj, and Howard, and she often uses it to her advantage. She eats food that the guys order without paying her share, she steals their Wi-Fi and uses their brains whenever she needs something technical done. Even worse, she made Leonard go to her ex-boyfriend's house to pick up her things after only knowing him for a few days, leading to Leonard getting bullied by her ex. Both him and Sheldon get their pants taken.
Leonard.
What?
My mom bought me those pants.
I'm sorry.
It is also shown that Penny is aware of her manipulative behavior since she grows insecure when a new pretty girl moves into their building and proceeds to use the guys in exactly the same manner as her. The Big Bang Theory is often held up as an example of a show that brought the geek way of life into the cultural mainstream. While it is true that the show is chock full of references to the most obscure facets of geek culture, how it explores those facets is more than a little questionable. Oftentimes, the entire punchline of a joke is that these grown men are actually interested in something so geeky. Consider the following actual joke from an actual episode on the show.
The fate of Doctor Who's TARDIS will be decided by a Game of Thrones-inspired deathmatch on the battlefield of Thundercats versus Transformers.
That's it. That's the entire joke. Just a bunch of references to various sci-fi and fantasy franchises. Many times, the show doesn't set up a reference to an aspect of geek culture, using that reference to create actual humor. Instead, all too often, the entire joke is showing how obsessed these man-children are with something that's somehow meant for kids. In the hands of a lesser actor, Sheldon would have become the most insufferable character in the history of television. It is a testament to Jim Parsons' skill as an actor that he managed to make audiences fall in love with Sheldon instead of viewing the character as the awful, awful person he really is. From the start of the show, Sheldon has proven himself time and again to be petty, selfish, vindictive, controlling, and callous. He constantly makes fun of his friends for not being as smart as him. He has made several jokes at the expense of women.
Your ovaries are squirting so much goofy juice into your brains you don't even know which way is up.
He He even showed his assistant Alex graphic images of human genitals without her consent. Some of this behavior wound up getting him sexual harassment accusations at work. Whenever Sheldon acts like a complete tool, the show makes it clear that he does so out of ignorance rather than active malice. That excuse would only work if Sheldon himself did not take offense when others act inappropriately towards him. But in those cases, Sheldon is always very quick to take offense. Clearly, Sheldon has a working understanding of right and wrong, but his dismissive attitude towards the entire human race, including his closest friends and family, makes him indifferent to any hurt he might cause to others. That is, until he is specifically called out on his behavior. Over time, Leonard became one of the most pathetic fictional characters ever created. In the beginning, he was shown to allow Sheldon to walk all over him in terms of their living arrangements. After marriage, Penny replaced Sheldon as the person who constantly orders Leonard around. And then, to cap it all off, we meet Leonard's mother, Beverly. It would be hard to overstate just how much emotional abuse Beverly subjected Leonard to from a young age. She withheld affection, turned a critical gaze on everything Leonard tried to do, and acted dismissive towards his achievements. To top it all off, Leonard discovers that his mother subjected him to a number of psychological experiments from an early age and published the findings for the world to see.
Every time I'm around her, I turn into this needy little 8-year-old boy.
All of this left deep scars on Leonard's psyche. But in a case of adding insult to injury, Beverly remains largely indifferent to Leonard's feelings. She often acts as though Leonard is being unduly emotional and that she had in fact been a model mother. Even though Leonard and Beverly eventually reach some sort of an understanding, the damage done to Leonard, in terms of turning him into a human doormat, will probably never be reversed. Sheldon is openly acknowledged to be a pretty terrible person because there's very little artifice in him, and he doesn't try to hide his true nature. But Sheldon has some tough competition in the biggest douchebag department from none other than sweet tiny Bernadette, who is deceptively sneaky about being a major bully. A prime example of Bernie's hidden nature was seen way back when everyone thought she was sweetness and delight personified. Sheldon is trumped by a physics problem, and the rest of the group are suffering the consequences. When they are all fed up, Bernie is the one to stand up to Sheldon. She talks to him like he's a child and sends him to bed. But the true extent of Bernadette's mean-spirited nature was realized once her professional life came into focus. It comes to light that everyone at her office is terrified of Bernadette, even her boss. In fact, everyone working in the same building as her collectively decides to repurpose the handicapped washroom as Bernadette's private lavatory after she keeps on using it. This bullying aspect of Bernie's nature frequently leaks into her private life in episodes to come, so much so that even Penny grows wary of accidentally making Bernadette angry. In general, it is repeatedly emphasized just how smart and capable the male characters are when it comes to their jobs, particularly Sheldon. But just because they have the brains to be good at their jobs doesn't mean they have the ethics to go along with it. In fact, Leonard, Sheldon, Raj, and Howard should be in jail for some of the things they've done while on the job. For instance, there was the time when Leonard almost divulged state secrets to a North Korean spy to make her sleep with him. Or when Leonard, Raj, and Howard illegally tested an experimental rocket fuel formula in a public area and blew up their residential building's elevator as a result. Then there's the time when Howard crashed the Mars rover space vehicle while trying to impress a random girl he met in a bar. And let's not forget when Sheldon and Leonard tried to illegally procure liquid helium through a shady contact. Honestly, sometimes you have to wonder how the guys have managed to stay out of jail and hold on to their jobs for so long.
What scene from The Big Bang Theory had Mayim Bialik feeling immensely stressed out and self-conscious? Keep watching to find out what happy character moment felt like a nightmare for the actor. The Big Bang Theory was one of television's longest-running and most successful sitcoms, starring Johnny Galecki, Jim Parsons, Kaley Cuoco, and Mayim Bialik, among others. The show featured a bunch of nerds stumbling through life and love, trying their best to find their own personal happiness. The show was adored by millions of fans worldwide during its run, running for an astonishing 12 seasons before finally coming to an end in 2019. But making the show wasn't without its difficulties for Bialik, especially when it came to filming the show's iconic wedding scene. Bialik played the brilliant Dr. Amy Farrah Fowler, who meets Dr. Sheldon Cooper, played by Parsons, on an arranged date. She and Sheldon start out a bit rocky, as tends to be the case with most relationships Sheldon gets into throughout the show, romantically romantic or otherwise. But as they get to know one another, their budding friendship eventually turns into something more. She makes him a better man, and once he finally matures just enough to realize that, he proposes. At the end of season 11, Amy and Sheldon finally get married. But while fans of the show were jumping for joy behind the scenes, it was extremely difficult for Bialik to pretend to be a smiling, happy bride. In a blog post published on Grok Nation the night before the episode aired, she revealed that it really affected her on a personal level because, as a divorced woman, it's hard to revisit that moment and those decisions. She also revealed that prior to filming the scenes, she had been out sick for a month. The illness was treated with antibiotics, which promoted weight gain. She wrote that she, quote, felt ashamed, and that she felt like people were judging her weight and appearance despite the fact that she had no control over it. She wrote, even though everyone said I looked beautiful, I didn't feel completely beautiful. Feeling down and out regarding her appearance during her wedding episode of The Big Bang Theory wasn't the only issue Bialik had to contend with. Like many performers, Bialik had been open about her battle with anxiety. She spoke about it at length during a 2021 episode of her podcast, Bialik Breakdown. While speaking with her Big Bang Theory co-star Kevin Sussman, Bialik said,
with acting stuff, my level of anxiety surrounding performing is very, very high.
And unfortunately, it's only heightened when she does improvisational acting, something she was called upon to do occasionally on The Big Bang Theory. She explained, and when I've tried to do things like improv, things that are very kind of freeform, I freeze. I literally freeze. It's like an instant knot in your throat. It's stuck and there are tears there. Like, I want to cry. Many other celebrities, including Ryan Reynolds and Emma Stone, have also opened up about dealing with anxiety as individuals who have to perform for a living. Even for the most successful stars, it's not easy, and Bialik went on to discuss how specifically it impacted her time on Big Bang Theory. I've had this a handful of times when working on Big Bang Theory when there was a certain way they wanted a line delivered and I was like, oh, okay, I got that. I'll do that in the next take. And I do it, but it's still not right. And sometimes it's like the audience isn't laughing. You know, it's not funny. I can usually do about 4 takes or 5 takes before my throat starts to do that thing. While discussing her social anxiety, Bialik revealed on her YouTube channel that she has made the decision not to take medication.
I choose to live with it and to struggle through it and to find new ways that I can feel freer to be myself.
Fortunately, there are other ways in which Bialik manages her anxiety. She revealed that she goes to therapy and practices meditation. She's also a big fan of weighted blankets. It may have been tough. Fortunately, resources are available to those who struggle with anxiety, and Bialik was able to do phenomenally during her time on The Big Bang Theory.
Back in 2007, collecting comics, wearing superhero merch, and researching particle physics might have seemed strictly reserved for nerds. It was the year after the original X-Men trilogy had wrapped in movie theaters, and the year that the Tobey Maguire starring Spider-Man trilogy ended with Emo Spidey. That September, a show about 4 geeky scientists and 1 beautiful aspiring actress debuted not with a bang, but with a collective Co-created by 2.5 Men mastermind Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady, who worked on series like Star Trek Voyager and Married with Children, The Big Bang Theory had creative powerhouses behind it. But it didn't take off like a homemade bottle rocket until a bit later in the game. The Big Bang Theory was riffing on nerd culture before nerd culture became mainstream. Following a lukewarm response to the first few seasons, the series eventually found its audience and broke several records. In 2018, the show's 4 leads, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, Simon Helberg, and Kunal Nayyar were the highest-paid actors on TV. Just one of the many ways that The Big Bang Theory is a lot like Friends, as many critics have stated. In 2019, 12 years after its premiere on CBS, The Big Bang Theory became the longest-running multi-camera sitcom, surpassing the previous record of 275 episodes set by Cheers. But by then, Parsons had already turned down a reported $50 million to make 2 more seasons, which is the real reason why The Big Bang Theory ended after the 12th season aired in 2019. As both celebration and mockery of geek culture, the show usually wasn't subtle about its references, but there were probably a few things you never noticed in the TV hit's final episode. The Big Bang Theory first aired at the peak of 2000s fashion, when Ugg boots and pleated miniskirts were the look. 12 years later, the trends may have changed, but the show's costume department snuck in a few references to the pilot to show how the characters' lives have come full circle. Sheldon's t-shirts have always been a talking point, especially now that superhero merch is more present at big box chain stores than ever. In the first half of the finale, The Change Constant, Sheldon is wearing one of his classic t-shirts bearing the Green Lantern logo. However, the t-shirt is deliberately faded, emphasizing the passing of time, and the fact that his clothing is yet another thing that he can't keep from changing. In the second half of the finale, The Stockholm Syndrome, Sheldon wears a t-shirt showing multiple superhero logos, which is unusual for him. This matches the feel of the episode as a conclusion of the whole series, with Sheldon finally learning to appreciate his friends, instead of thinking about himself all the time. Sheldon isn't the only one whose t-shirt is talking. In the final shot, look closer at Penny's light blue top with purple flowers, and you'll see that it's the same one she wore when she first met Sheldon and Leonard. Penny also wore this top when Leonard asked her on a date that led to them rekindling their relationship in Season 5. It's a nice way to connect the pivotal moments in a relationship that has been at the heart of the show from day one. There's another Penny-Leonard connection between the pilot and finale. In The Stockholm Syndrome, Penny reveals that she's pregnant. The couple's decision over whether to have children is a thread throughout the final season, but it's actually been in the cards for a lot longer. You likely never noticed in The Big Bang Theory's first episode that Leonard predicted this plotline in the pilot. Immediately after meeting Penny, he told Sheldon,
"Our babies will be smart and beautiful."
We'll have to wait 20 years or so for the inevitable revival to find out whether or not this assessment is true. But it also marked an unusual moment for Sheldon. His response to Leonard's prediction is,
Not to mention imaginary.
even Nobel Prize-winning theoretical physicists can't be right all the time.
Of the four main men on The Big Bang Theory, Raj Kruthapalli, played by Kunal Nair, was perhaps the most socially awkward. Raj's difficulties with women resulted in some painfully uncomfortable situations, one of which involved Raj doing the absolute worst thing he's ever done.
You went out with him. I didn't.
Throughout The Big Bang Theory, Raj, the self-proclaimed romantic of the group, tries to have a successful relationship with a woman but falls horribly short for a number of reasons. On more than one occasion, he requests that his parents organize an arranged marriage with a woman from a good Indian family, and every single one of them ends up failing miserably. A list of his other romantic mishaps include dating two women at once, rifling through a girl's closets and drawers when she leaves him alone in her house, leaving one girl for another after the briefest of meetings with the latter, and then coming crawling back to his ex when a girl turns him away, pushing women way out of their comfort zone, referring to women he's not attracted to as fatties and uggos, and spying on his fiancée. And that's not even to mention him fantasizing about his friends' wives and girlfriends throughout the show, even almost hooking up with Penny one night.
What were you thinking?
Easily the worst thing Raj did, however, was to Isabella. On the Season 10 episode entitled The Brain Bowl Incubation, Raj meets the beautiful maintenance worker when she comes into his lab at Caltech to clean late one night. Despite the instant spark between them, it becomes clear that Raj has a problem with Isabella's job. After hitting it off with Isabella in his lab, Raj helps her clean the bathrooms. During their cleaning session, he decides to ask Isabella on a date, but she explains she doesn't have time to date while working two jobs. Before leaving the bathroom, he tries to convince Isabella to change her mind, and she again turns him down. The rest of the gang quickly picks up on the fact that Raj has met someone.
You're dating somebody, who is it?
But Raj makes a fatal and cruel mistake when he fails to correct their assumption that she's also an astronomer. What? For a supposedly intelligent man, this is a stupid move. Still, Raj cooks up a plan to surprise her and get the date he wants. It's a little pushy and desperate after she's already turned him down twice in the bathroom. When Isabella next walks into his lab, he's set up a romantic dinner, complete with flowers and a tablecloth for them to enjoy. Things seem to be going swimmingly, and then Howard walks in and casually mentions,
"Oh yeah, the astronomer. Raj told us about you."
You can actually see Isabella's face fall as she instantly realizes Raj has lied about her job, and rightly points out that she doesn't need to waste her time with someone who's embarrassed by what she does for a living. She makes a quick exit from the lab, dragging her cleaning cart with her as she goes. Raj tries to go after Isabella and apologize, saying he couldn't believe how shallow he was being.
Honestly, I didn't think your job would bother me, but I guess it did, and I hate myself for that.
Fortunately, Isabella has enough respect for herself to walk away from someone who clearly won't respect her. Raj knew what Isabella did before he even started pursuing her and continued to chase her, knowing full well he would never be comfortable telling his friends that she's a cleaning lady at the university and not another scientist. What exactly did he think was going to happen? It's such a blatant lie that there's no way anyone will convince us Raj truly thought their relationship would be able to go anywhere without the lie coming out. The shame he felt over Isabella's job is even more ironic when we consider the fact that, at that point in time, Raj was still living off his father's fortune to pay for his rent, maid, car, and credit card bills, something he seems oddly proud of.
Oh, I grew up with a house full of servants and now I have a cleaning lady, who is a lovely woman who I have great respect for.
At least Isabella is making a living off her own money. Raj really has no leg to stand on with this classism here.
In my defense, I have a car whose doors open like this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's never acceptable to make someone else feel ashamed about what they do, and Raj hit rock bottom with his treatment of Isabella during this episode of The Big Bang Theory. Watching him lie to his friends about Isabella's job makes it easy to understand why Raj has so many problems with women.
Jealousy over money, social media shade, nerds collide, oh my. Was there more surface tension on the set of The Big Bang Theory than we first realized? Keep watching for what you need to know about Kaley Cuoco and Mayim Bialik's real relationship. At its heart, The Big Bang Theory is a show about friendship. While it's true that the series essentially follows a group of socially awkward nerds, friendship is an important part of daily lives of mega nerd Sheldon Cooper and his like-minded companions. Among plenty of other notable friendships, the pairing of Penny, played by Kaley Cuoco, and Amy, played by Mayim Bialik, stands out as one of the show's most prominent. Though the two have quite a difficult time getting to know one another after Amy is first introduced in Season 3, by the end of the series, they're as thick as thieves in spite of their many differences. However, some online gossip has suggested that the actors who play these two characters might not be as chummy as their on-screen counterparts. In fact, rumors swirled for years regarding a possible on-set feud between Cuoco and Bialik. Some gossip websites have even alleged that the stars were once embroiled in a so-called catfight, and that the two once had to be physically separated from each other. As is often the case when it comes to celebrity gossip, there's apparently not much credence to these claims. In fact, it's fair to say that Bialik and Cuoco seem to share a solid friendship in real life, as well as on screen.
Well, obviously the cast, we had great chemistry from the beginning.
While rumors of a feud between Kaley Cuoco and Mayim Bialik may be entertaining and at least somewhat plausible, they're not entirely accurate. Of course, it's not unheard of for cast members on a long-running series like The Big Bang Theory to develop some animosity, especially when large sums of money are involved. In fact, money happens to be the cause of the rumor in question, which reportedly emerged due to a massive pay gap between the show's original and later cast members. More specifically, these rumors claim that Bialik made $100,000 an episode, while Cuoco made $1 million, which upset Bialik. However, many of the articles discussing these rumors list no real sources to back up their claims. Meanwhile, evidence of Cuoco and Bialik's real-life friendship seems much more credible. For example, according to Variety, Cuoco and the other original Big Bang Theory co-stars took pay cuts in 2017 to increase the paychecks of both Bialik and Melissa Rauch, who plays Bernadette on the show. While Cuoco and the other original stars still made much more money than their newer counterparts, their pay cuts were an important gesture. Regardless of a potentially significant pay gap between the two actors, it seems that they're friends in real life. When Cuoco got married to her now ex-husband Carl Cook in 2018, Bialik was notably one of the few Big Bang Theory cast members to actually attend the ceremony. As a result, it seems apparent that the two are closer than certain rumors may suggest. Mayim Bialik herself once addressed the subject of her relationship with Kaley Cuoco firsthand. During a video interview with Wired, as part of a series in which participants are asked some of the most searched questions about themselves, Bialik responded directly to whether or not she and Cuoco are friends.
Well, we worked together for 9 years, and I went to her wedding and celebrated things with her. I would say we're friends.
Furthermore, Bialik and Cuoco both participated in a cast reunion in Glamour magazine to commemorate the book The Big Bang Theory, the definitive inside story of the epic hit series. While it certainly seems as though a friendship between the two actors exists, it's also possible that Bialik and Cuoco may not be as close as they have publicly implied. Specifically, one Reddit user pointed out that Cuoco doesn't follow Bialik on Instagram, in spite of the fact that Bialik follows Cuoco and once tagged her in a photo. In short, the rumored animosity between Bialik and Cuoco seems to be overblown. Nevertheless, the Instagram discrepancy suggests that a certain degree of tension could exist between the two actors. Perhaps they're just two people who don't necessarily see eye to eye, but work together on one of the most popular TV shows of all time.
It takes a show a while to get the kinks out, and The Big Bang Theory is no exception. Here are all the weird things you might not have realized about the first episode of The Big Bang Theory. The first scene of the first episode of The Big Bang Theory begins with a setting never seen on the series again, and broaching a topic that's never explored further. Concerned about growing old before passing on their science genius genes, Sheldon and Leonard visit a sperm bank, one that only accepts the genetic material of the highly intelligent and exceptional. While that's very much in character with Sheldon's outspoken vanity and pride in his superior intellect, it clashes mightily with how he's depicted for most of the rest of the series, which is somewhat adverse to any and all kinds of sexual and physical behavior. It's a little weird to see the almost always libido-free Sheldon openly talk about and be open to providing a sample at a sperm bank. It's even stranger later in the episode when the famously awkward Sheldon considers the possibility of coupling up with Penny. In the same way that Sheldon is more of a red-blooded sexual being than he'd wind up being for most of The Big Bang Theory, Penny isn't quite right at the beginning of the show. She moves in across the hall from Leonard and Sheldon, and the former is smitten with her after their first meeting. Sure, she's conventionally attractive, but Penny is also very likable. She's friendly, she's bubbly, and she's curious about her new building mates. This isn't the Penny that Kaley Cuoco would play later on. Before long, Penny would get a lot less lively and a lot more cynical. Perhaps hanging out with all those fussy, exhausting, high-maintenance nerds day in and day out killed her spirit, along with that tiring job as a chain restaurant waitress and a demoralizing, ultimately failed career as an actress. Plus, Penny defies the stereotypical dumb blonde archetype she's supposed to embody by revealing in the pilot that she's written a screenplay. The idea of Penny's potential double threat as a performer and a writer is never mentioned again, and her screenwriting talents were quickly abandoned. Maybe the most notable thing about the first episode of The Big Bang Theory isn't what's there, but what isn't there, or rather, who isn't. Nearly half of the show's core long-term cast members weren't yet a part of the series. Kevin Sussman didn't make his first appearance as Sad Sack comic store owner Stewart until the end of Season 2. Melissa Rauch didn't join the series as microbiologist Bernadette Rostenkowski until the start of Season 3. And Mayim Bialik didn't portray neurologist Amy Farrah Fowler until the end of Season 3. That means none of them show up or even merit a mention in the first episode of The Big Bang Theory. That gives the episode a sparse feel. It's just really quiet and simple with only 5 main characters. Plus, after so many episodes about romantic entanglements, Sheldon and Amy, Howard and Bernadette, Leonard and Penny, it's the rare episode of The Big Bang Theory that isn't entirely about a couple. The Big Bang Theory could be characterized as a quick-moving, rapid-fire show. The setups and punchlines come at the viewer fast, as do scene changes with that distinctive transitional graphic of an atomic model accompanied by a whoosh sound effect. Plus, the average Big Bang episode incorporates a lot of scenes at several locations, generally including the main apartment set, the one across the hall, some Caltech offices, the cafeteria, Howard and Bernadette's house, and a few other spots. However, that format and its fast flow weren't in place in the first episode. The pilot feels more like a play, clearly separated into 3 acts and only a handful of scenes, and they're all about as long as a scene can be in a half-hour sitcom. The episode begins with a pre-theme song cold open that stretches to a whopping 6-minute scene. After that, it's on to the guy's apartment, where the vast majority of the episode takes place. Based on his behavior in the first episode of The Big Bang Theory, it's hard to get a handle on Raj Koothrappali. No trace of his future character arcs are present. Not his desire for a grand and epic romance, nor his slow acceptance of his own fate and his move away from dependence on his wealthy parents. That's because Raj, a main character in most episodes of The Big Bang Theory, has about 2 lines in the show's pilot episode.
Wait till you see this.
It's fantastic. Unbelievable.
This is explained away with his early quirk of being too shy to talk to women without the aid of alcoholic beverages. But still, it's odd and surprising that he barely talks. Raj even dresses differently, wearing a baseball cap with his regular nerdy outfit. Although many ingredients that would make The Big Bang Theory such a resounding, long-running success weren't yet present in the show's first episode, the writers did show some foresight. Like other situation comedies about groups of young friends, The Big Bang Theory is about a social group that forms a de facto family, and it evoked that idea week after week by having the whole gang gathering to eat together, like a family dinner. It was a powerful statement, and the cast eating takeout with one another became one of the definitive, enduring images of The Big Bang Theory over the years. It was also the very last scene of the very last episode of the series, creating a parallel with the first episode, where Sheldon and Leonard invited Penny into their family by asking her to eat with them.
Oh, you're inviting me over to eat?
Yes.
Oh, that's so nice. I'd love to.
Plus, in the pilot episode, Leonard watches Penny walk away, and then he proclaims they will one day have babies that, quote, will be smart and beautiful thanks to their meshed genes. In the finale, married Penny and Leonard learn they've got a baby on the way. Though Sheldon mocked Leonard for this declaration in the pilot, he uses his Nobel Prize acceptance speech in the finale to note that his friend was right.
He said to me that their babies would be smart and beautiful. And now that they're expecting, I have no doubt that that will be the case.
Which Big Bang Theory characters went out smiling, and which ones had truly terrible finales? Here are the endings of every major Big Bang Theory character, ranked from worst to best. Because not all character endings are created equal. By season 7, lovesick and lonely Raj, played by Kunal Nair, has completely given up on meeting women by traditional methods in favor of online dating. Until enter Emily Sweeney, played by Laura Spencer. After Emily sends a message to Raj, the two begin a slowly developing relationship. The news that Raj has a steady girlfriend is so huge, in fact, that The Big Bang Theory treats it as a bigger deal than when Leonard and Penny announced their engagement. Sadly, in season 9, Raj messes up a good thing, dumping Emily to pursue new possibilities in the name of Claire, played by Alessandra Torresani. Of course, as you might have already guessed, Claire rejects poor Raj. Emily shows up just enough to remind viewers she's moved on with a new boyfriend, and that intimacy problems with Raj help doom their relationship from the beginning. All this makes Emily's finale more of a bust than a bang. When the show started, the 4 male characters on The Big Bang Theory all had very different approaches when it came to hooking up with members of the opposite sex.
Hi.
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 Hi?
Howard, played by Simon Helberg, wanted cheap, tawdry physical pleasures. Leonard Hofstetter, played by Johnny Galecki, only wanted to be with Kaley Cuoco, who played Penny. Of course, Sheldon, played by Jim Parsons, found the whole notion of romance a strange distraction from his scientific work.
Would you be open to rotating the couch clockwise 30 degrees?
Meanwhile, Raj harbored an innocent, dreamy, fairy tale idea of romance. Ironically, he was the one who struggled the most with his love life. Over time, Raj maintained a few relationships. Lucy, played by Kate Micucci, Emily, played by Katie LeClaire, and of course, Claire and the other Emily. Still, when a character's whole goal is to seek out love, it's disappointing they don't get to have it when their show ends. In the final episode, Raj even pays Sarah Michelle Gellar of Buffy the Vampire Slayer to attend Sheldon and Amy's Nobel Prize ceremony as his date.
Is that Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Which is just plain sad. Melissa Rauch first popped up as Bernadette on The Big Bang Theory early in season 3 when she was set up with Howard. The two hit it off, and a few episodes later, Rauch permanently joined the cast. Over the course of the show, Bernadette progresses in both her work life and personal life, starting out as a Cheesecake Factory server alongside Penny to pay for her doctorate. Bernadette eventually becomes a well-paid and highly regarded researcher at a pharmaceutical company. Bernadette marries Howard at the end of season 5, and 5 years later, they welcome their first daughter, Hallie. Before long, baby Neil is born, and that makes 4 in the household. Bernadette's story is maintained for the final season of The Big Bang Theory, where she's a harried working mother of 2, dealing with day-to-day stressors without too much really happening with the character. For most of his run on The Big Bang Theory, Stuart Bloom, played by Kevin Sussman, remained a steady, unchanging character. Stuart serves as a worst-case scenario comparison for the main characters. If they consider themselves nerds who have a hard time attracting women and interacting with mainstream society, Stuart shows them that their situation could be a lot worse.
Look at me, I'm 37. I sleep in the back of a comic book store and I have the bone density of an 80-year-old man.
He's the owner of the Big Bang Boys' favorite comic book store, a guy who freely discusses his fears and anxieties about the store closing and leaving him in economic ruin, as well as his inability to maintain any sort of romantic relationship with the opposite sex. In other words, he's the geek shunned by the other geeks. And the major characters keep him at arm's length, as if his bad luck is contagious. By The Big Bang Theory's finale, however, Stewart has finally found love, admitting his feelings for comic store employee Denise, played by Lauren Lapkus, who returns the sentiment.
You are so hot.
But neither are considered close enough to the gang to attend the Nobel Prize ceremony in Sweden. Instead, they stay in California to babysit Howard and Bernadette's kids, which, in classic Stewart fashion, is a disaster. Penny seems happy at the conclusion of The Big Bang Theory, but is she really? Comparing the Penny at the end of the show to the one at the beginning reveals a changed woman, and not necessarily for the better.
I'm also writing a screenplay. It's about this sensitive girl who comes to LA from Lincoln, Nebraska to be an actress and winds up a waitress at the Cheesecake Factory.
When she moves across the hall from Sheldon and Leonard, she's bubbly, friendly, and fueled by her dream of becoming an actress and screenwriter. But as the show goes on, Penny's character begins to change. Dealing with a fussy, rude Sheldon and a tumultuous relationship with Leonard turns her into the show's source of put-downs and eye-rolling, often with a large glass of wine to cope with what her life has become. Apart from roles in a few humiliating B-movies and commercials, Penny never does make it as an actress. She abandons that career for a more lucrative but less fulfilling one as a pharmaceutical rep. At least her romantic life settles down. Penny marries Leonard, who worships the ground she walks on. In the final episode, Penny tells her husband that she's pregnant, despite making it clear that she had no intention of becoming a mother. In the end, nothing turned out the way it was supposed to for Penny. Only one person on The Big Bang Theory absolutely hates Sheldon, and he isn't afraid to let him know. Yeah, we're talking about fellow Caltech scientist Barry Kripke, played by John Ross Bowie. He's the workplace equivalent of a schoolyard bully who taunts Cooper.
Kripke,
Yes?
you're in my spot.
In the final season, Kripke gets his redemption, and he gets to mock Sheldon one last time. Even though Sheldon rejects his request to fund a project, he offers to help Sheldon prove that one of his rivals for the Nobel Prize is a fraud. Later, when Sheldon is awaiting the phone call to see if he won that very big honor, Kripke prank calls him, pretending to be the organizers from Sweden. And that's how Kripke goes out, teasing Sheldon until the very end. The Big Bang Theory scored a major casting coup when Mayim Bialik joined the cast in Season 3. Like castmate and ex-Roseanne star Johnny Galecki, Bialik was a former teen sitcom actor, familiar to millions as the title character on Blossom. Additionally, Bialik studied in a field similar to that of her character on The Big Bang Theory, Amy Farrah Fowler. As it turns out, the performer has a doctorate in neurobiology, adding some realism to her role as a neuroscientist.
I got my PhD in neuroscience from UCLA.
In her early appearances, Amy is quiet and lonely, with no one in her life except for her lab animals. Big Bang Theory writers, however, leaned into the idea of having Amy be a match for the also forever solo Sheldon Cooper. Eventually, the romantically driven Amy gets Sheldon to do things he's never considered doing, like kissing and getting married. It's no surprise that such a logical, direct character would wind up getting exactly what she wants, the ideal husband to match the ideal career. In the final episode of the series, Amy achieves what only a handful of scientists ever do. She wins a Nobel Prize.
To say to all the young girls out there who dream about science as a profession, go for it.
Sharing the nod with, you guessed it, Sheldon. Before she winds up with Leonard, Penny brings a few guys home to meet her friends. Zach Johnson, played with relish by Brian Thomas Smith, is a classic sitcom jock. Big, athletic, good-looking, but also noticeably stupid.
One question. How can you be sure it won't blow up?
The laser?
The moon.
Like a human version of a dog, Zach is dumb, but he doesn't care. Plus, he's friendly to everyone. feeling threatened by this man who represented every high school bully who ever dunked them into a toilet or trash can, the cast of geeks insult him to his face and talk bad about him behind his back. Zach gets the happy ending he deserves. He forms a menu design company and sells it for millions. He also gets over Penny and marries a woman named Marissa, played by Lindsay Kraft, who is just as dim and kind as he is. While Sheldon Cooper endures the nasty, childish taunts and pranks of Barry Kripke, his true enemy is Will Wheaton, the former child star who played Wesley Crusher on Sheldon's beloved Star Trek: The Next Generation. So what's up with the hatred? Well, Wheaton failed to show up for an autograph session Sheldon worked hard to attend. Wheaton played himself over several episodes of The Big Bang Theory, usually to gleefully antagonize Sheldon. For example, in a card game tournament, he explains that he missed that fateful autograph session to be with his sick grandmother, and Sheldon, close to his own grandmom, lets his guard down in a rare show of empathy, leading Wheaton to win, even though Wheaton was lying about his grandmother the whole time.
I call my Mima Nana, and she's going to be very happy to hear that my small rock kills your enchanted bunny.
In the final season of The Big Bang Theory, the characters square off once more when both are gunning to play children's science show host Professor Proton, a role that opened up after the death of the original actor, played by Bob Newhart. Wheaton rightfully gets the gig, devastating Sheldon. A fitting end for the well-qualified rogue. Leonard Hofstadter is a brilliant scientist with a lot to brag about. He has workplace accomplishments and makes major scientific achievements. Ultimately, the prestigious Caltech researcher has one goal above else. He wants to wind up hitched to Penny and live happily ever after. In The Big Bang Theory's pilot, Leonard claims he's going to have children with Penny someday.
Our babies will be smart and beautiful.
And after some initial disinterest on her part, some will they won't they ups and downs, the pair finally get hitched and officially settle. However, there's one major issue in the pairing between the energetic actress and the goofy scientist. He wants to start a family. She doesn't. In the finale, however, Penny excitedly tells Leonard that she's expecting.
Someone's gonna figure it out. Why don't we just tell people?
No, it's too early. I haven't even wrapped my head around it.
My head is wrapped.
That means Leonard gets his dream woman, along with his prophecy fulfilled too. It's yet another win for Leonard. On top of all that, near the end of the series, Leonard reconciles his tense and cold relationship with his intimidating mother, psychiatrist and neuroscientist Dr. Beverly Hofstadter, played by Christine Baranski.
So, I forgive you.
Way to go, Leonard! The one character that changes the most throughout the 12-season run of The Big Bang Theory, who gets to enjoy one of the most definitive, accomplished, and meaningful endings, is Howard Wolowitz. Way back in Season 1, Howard was the closest thing the show had to a villain. It's unsettling how he relentlessly hit on Penny, even though she stated several times that she found both the man and his method unattractive and repulsive.
You may be familiar with some of my work. It's currently orbiting Jupiter's largest moon, taking high-resolution digital photographs.
For years, Howard stayed a revolting, sex-obsessed creep who hit on any woman he saw. Never mind, he never actually attracted a woman to his sleazy bedroom, in the house he shared with his overbearing mother. However, the Howard at the end of The Big Bang Theory is a different man entirely. By then, he's been happily married for years to Bernadette, and he does his best to make her happy. The only other female on his radar is his toddler daughter, Hallie. He's also established a successful career as a scientist and engineer. The dude even went to space with NASA. How's that for a Big Bang ending? While The Big Bang Theory is a sitcom about a group of scientists who are best friends, it's really the story of one man, Sheldon Cooper.
They can't function without me. I'm the social glue that holds this little group together.
Never before had a sitcom as broad and mainstream as this attempted to include a main character who is one of the smartest people in the world. That's because sitcom characters are generally both relatable and amiable. And Sheldon is, well, neither of those things. After graduating from college as a teenager, he went on to study the secrets of the universe as a theoretical physicist. He may be proven a smarty pants, but for most of the Big Bang's run, Sheldon's social skills were about as charming as a moon rock.
Sheldon, I'm not ready to have a baby.
Oh, yes, you are. I track your cycle.
Over the 12 seasons, however, Sheldon Cooper learns how to be a conscientious person, even if at a snail's pace. And in the two-part series finale, Sheldon wins a Nobel Prize, the ultimate recognition for a high-end researcher of his caliber, and a crowning achievement in a career full of scientific breakthroughs. The episode's climax is an emotional one, when Sheldon uses part of his speech to express, at long last, profound gratitude for his friends and wife and co-Nobel laureate, Amy.
I wouldn't be up here if it weren't for some very important people in my life